Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate, and to be focusing on the Palestinian cause and the efforts of Egypt to be alleviating the suffering on the Palestinian shoulders in the Gaza Strip and elsewhere in Palestine. I'm honored once again to be saying hello to my dear guest in the studio for tonight, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Today we have seen some developments in terms of returning the returnees from Egypt into the Gaza Strip once again after receiving treatment in the Egyptian hospitals in the past period. How do you see the efforts of Egypt on the medical and the health fronts for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip?
Well, Egypt from the beginning did not spare any effort to alleviate the burden on the Palestinian. We have seen Egypt opening its borders to the Palestinian, receiving the wounded and the injured civilians who could not be treated in Gaza to be treated in Egyptian hospitals. We even built some field hospitals to treat the Palestinian if they couldn't reach any medical facility in Egypt itself. And on another side also we've seen what we have done concerning the entering of the aid. But here yes. I need to say something.
Yes.
We have to understand that the conviction of Israel is to make life as impossible as it could be for the Palestinians in order to liquidate the Palestinian cause and to get rid of the Palestinian. I mean, we don't need any international media or any world coverage to know this fact that we have seen for decades in Israel. I mean, even the Prime Minister of Israel himself, he said that he is proud to be the one who totally abolished the idea of the two-state solution. So if we start from this base, which is that Israel wants to get rid of Palestinians to make life as miserable as possible to the Palestinians, then we will understand all what it's doing in order to harden their life. First of all, that now the Rafah border cannot actually receive any trucks, and that the only entrance is through Karm Abu Salim,
yes,
which is more complicated. Second, that Israel has and will always keep to it in its hand the right to investigate every truck and each truck, and this could mean days and nights of waiting period until they finish their inspection. So actually they are the one holding the tab. When they want to open, they open. When they don't want to open it. And the dual usage of some things, like for example concrete or anything that could be used not just in construction but for other purposes that yes. Israel would ban. Also for fuel, although fuel is very important to make the left of the hospitals work, but also there are restrictions. And in short, they are trying to make it as difficult as possible so that Palestinians would voluntarily migrate from Gaza and go to start a life anywhere else. And this is the real problem here, that although all the efforts of Egypt and the international community, but Israel remains the only power who is capable of allowing or not allowing the humanitarian aid to enter to Gaza. And in this regard, I think that the United States specifically have to exert more pressure on Israel so that more humanitarian aid can enter, because this is the Geneva Convention, these are the international law regulations, the international humanitarian law, that the civilians should not be subject to collective punishment as what Israel is doing, which is a war crime. So the idea is here is who is capable of putting pressure on Israel so it would allow the Egyptian and also the other countries who wants to help be able to help. Remember, at a certain phase, the only possible way is were by air, which actually killed many Palestinians while they were waiting to receive those things, and some of them fell on the tents where they're living and killed people and so on, because simply Israel didn't want to open its borders for any humanitarian aid in order to once again harden the situation in Israel. So this is the main problem, is how are we going to convince Israel to really open its border, the borders of Palestine that it is controlling, in order to allow the humanitarian aid to flow without any obstruction.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned the importance of not displacing the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip or from any other place from Palestine for that matter. And we have seen the stance of Egypt to be rejecting the displacement of the Palestinians and the migration, as you mentioned, that they are pushing the Palestinians out of Palestine and out of the Gaza Strip into Egypt, into Jordan, according to the previous statements released by the American President Donald Trump. But how did you see the other statements released by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to be rejecting this idea, to be rejecting this plan and this strategy implemented by Israel for the past few decades, for example, not just for the past few years? On the other hand, the 187th aid convoy, the Zaid al-Izza from Egypt to Gaza, entered today from Egypt into the Gaza Strip.
Well, as when it comes to the convoys that are entering, these convoys, although of course we salute the efforts behind them, and we salute President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi for insisting on continuing, although the turmoil that is going on all over the Middle East,
yes,
that he still remembers the Palestinian and still wants to help as much as he can to alleviate the hardship that the Palestinians are living in. But in the reality is that, as we said before, that the Israelis are holding the tab, as we can say. They are the one who can open and they can close. I mean, of course, we are talking about the 187th Zaid al-Izza convoy,
yes,
but I believe that we could do thousands of these convoys if Israel did not put all these obstacles and all these restraining conditions against the entering of the convoys. This is on one hand. The second thing is that the Israelis are controlling now, occupying actually now over almost 60% of Gaza Strip.
Yes.
And this, I think, Israel considers it as the bonus they took after the massacres and the deliberate war against the civilians in Gaza Strip. That's why everybody is calling it a genocidal war, because it was a genocide against the Palestinian people, and they ended up by occupying 60% of the Palestinian land. And as we all heard before, Israel is not thinking at all about applying the second phase. And if you remember, on this platform, between you and me in the same studio, we mentioned before that Israel's only concern is to retrieve its hostages and the bodies of its hostages, and the minute it's going to receive them, they will not care about implementing any additional phase of a peace process. And this is exactly what we are seeing right now. Israel, after it has received all the bodies, until the last body, we all remember how was the last body.
Yes.
I mean, the price of this body costed us over a few hundreds of Palestinian martyrs. Nevertheless, after Israel recuperated the last of their hostages and the bodies, they don't want to go into phase 2, because this phase 2 actually implies that Israel has to withdraw from the Palestinian territory, which they are not planning to do, and to even ease even more the entrance of humanitarian aid, which, as we have seen, Israel is not doing easily. So this has become a weapon, a tool for Israel to control the poor Palestinian population and the civilians who are suffering, and especially the children and the elderly who are suffering from the lack of many basic needs. While if you look into many reports coming even from international organizations, that Israel is allowing the commercial merchandise to enter Gaza a lot more than the humanitarian aid, simply because these belongs to people who are going to pay customs for it and who are going to sell it and not to give it away. And this is what Israel wants, I mean, is to keep the pressure on the Palestinian people more than they could sustain, simply for maybe another explosion of this population, and then Israel will doom them once again as terrorists and then resume its activities and strikes against the Palestinian population. So we are in a vicious circle, and Egypt is trying to do its best to alleviate the pain from the Palestinian, but of course the support of the United States is much greater to allow Israel to continue with the massacres it's committing against the Palestinian people.
Speaking about the political leadership of Egypt, we have seen His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visiting Cyprus for the past couple of weeks and meeting with several European leaders, and more specifically the Cypriot leader Nikos Christodoulidis, during participating in the informal European Union summit. And he spoke about the importance of the Palestinian cause, the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, the implementation of the second phase of the plan according to the strategy and the proposal of the US President Donald Trump. How do you see the importance of President al-Sisi always speaking about the Palestinian cause? Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdul Ati doing the same within every opportunity that he can.
Well, simply because we are seeing things the way they are. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi knows that the root cause of all the problem of the Middle East is the Palestinian cause. If we didn't have the Israeli occupation of Palestine, we wouldn't need any resistant movement in Gaza or in the West Bank, if there are any, and we wouldn't need Hezbollah in Lebanon, we wouldn't need any hostility against Israel, we wouldn't need, actually, if I may add, the split of the Arab world between those who are following the Abraham Accords,
yes,
and those who are opposing it in the Arab world. We've seen, I mean, it's not a secret that the Arab world is not on the same posture anymore when it comes to the Palestinian cause, and when it comes to even the common Arab issues. And this is becoming very alarming now, that for the first time we see right before our eyes there is a split in the Arab unity that were always held before. So the situation is quite clear that Egypt is trying its utmost. President al-Sisi understands that the root cause of all the problems is the Palestinian cause, and the minute we are going to reach a real peace between Israel and the Palestinians, we can have normal relations with Israel. And I want to say that since 2000, and we have what we call the Arab Initiative, that was originally a Saudi initiative that has become the Arab Initiative, which is Land for Peace in short. And Israel, as you know, have always, even if it didn't say it out loud, but have always believed in peace for peace instead of land for peace, which means that I will give you peace, you give me peace, but I will still occupy your land. This is what Israel wants, and this is what Israel is doing actually by expanding its territories into other neighboring countries like Syria, like Lebanon, like Palestine, that as we just mentioned, they added already 60% of Gaza, and they passed a law to even annex more and more of Palestinian land in the West Bank, and to expand the colonies, and to totally destroy the hope for a two-state solution. And I'm afraid to say that sometimes they succeed. I mean, what we are asking for, and the whole world is asking for, which is the land of the 4th of June 1967,
yes,
I think is different from the land of the partition decision in 1948. So Israel actually is pushing to always new frontiers, so that we will start negotiating on the last step and not on the original step. We should be negotiating on the 1948 borders, but actually we are negotiating about the 1967 borders, and we are not even able to achieve this. And all of this because the strongest power in the world, the strongest military power in the world, which is the United States, is unconditionally supporting Israel for whatever it's doing, especially at the time of President Trump, who has been the president who has done a lot of things to Israel no other president dared before to do. And unfortunately, this is how we reach where we are right now.
Yes, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister and the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.